Hello, I'm Brigantia Blackbird of the Blackbird Grimoires. Welcome back to our series Pagan Tales. Today we are talking about the Morrigan, and I must begin with a disclaimer. I'm a firm believer in transparency and trying to be as open and as real with you as what I possibly can be. It's the reason why I let my mistakes show, because at least you know what you're dealing with, and you're familiar with my foibles. And if I was trying to be one of those people who was putting on a front, I wouldn't let those foibles pass by. But another reason I want to start with a bit of a disclaimer is just because of my own personal experiences with the Morrigan and my perceptions of her, which, I probably need to be reviewed. And if anything comes from that review, it'll probably come up in a discussion in another video at some point in the future. But it's important to understand when someone has very strong feelings or strong reactions on a topic or in relationship to a deity, that the person listening to anything they say about it is aware of that, so that they can take what's being said with a pinch of salt and remember to draw their own personal conclusions about that, do their own research, and of course, believe in the truth of their own experiences if they come into contact with a particular deity. And that's just what the understanding that I want you to go in with this video on. So that out of the way, let's talk about the Morrigan. This has been mentioned on videos I've done before, but in case you haven't seen them, or by way of review, reminder, the Morrigan is just a title. Whenever you see "the" in front of a deity title or name within the Celtic pantheon, you can count on it that you are dealing with a title rather than a personal name. That's just a pattern. You'll also see that tradition reflected and how chieftains of Scottish clans were traditionally referred to. The Duncan, the Mackenzie, the Fraser, things of that sort. It is meant to be a title. So the big question with Morrigan's identity: is she one goddesses, or is she multiple goddesses who claim the title and role? Is this, do the deities reincarnate, and are we coming across different names at different stages of her reincarnation cycle? It is all very debatable. We don't really know. The research is utterly inconclusive and contradictory, and it gives me migraines. So examine the available information, draw your own conclusions. That's the best thing I can tell you. So exploring a little bit more of who the Morrigan is, we have various names associated with her, however you perceive these, whether, separate beings or guises or however else it is, that's for you to sort out between yourself. Most frequently, we have Babd, Nemain, Maka, and Anand mentioned. Sometimes, it shouldn't be Fae, it should be Fee. I've been writing Fae so often, I think I transpose the letters. Again, letting the mistake show right there. Another possibility that is occasionally brought up is the goddess Rhiannon. I have mixed feelings about whether or not Rhiannon is a name or another title associated with the Morrigan, simply because of again, my own personal experiences and my practices. When I began working with the god Loki, it's always been my practice, because I like to have masculine and feminine balances, that I would also invite in a goddess to balance, him. And one of the first goddesses I brought in circle with him was the Morrigan. And it was the most painful atmosphere of strained politeness I have ever experienced in ritual, and I've never brought them into circle at the same time ever again. And I don't think I'm really like to. I don't know what the issue is. I don't know what was going on. No one confided in me, of course. Why would we tell the human these things? But it just, that there was an atmosphere that I didn't like. It was not a really good combination. Whereas when I brought Rhiannon into circle with Loki, it was a completely different attitude. It was, I would describe his his energy is one of is gentlemanly respect and politeness, very, very kind, and she meshed with him very well. So that really does make me doubt that Rhiannon and Morgan are one and the same. However, the reason why I think that's not conclusive is because, for one, I brought in Rhiannon into the circle after that unfortunate occasion with the Morgans. So perhaps behind the scenes there was some, sitting down around the teapot and sorting out some difficulties, which could account for a changed atmosphere. Or it could simply be because, depending upon what title you summon this goddess by, it might affect what energy you're bringing to the table. And perhaps if Rhiannon is an aspect of the Morrigan, when she's essentially flying under the Rhiannon flag, she's bringing a different face, a different energy, and a different mode of being to the table than when she's coming as the Morrigan. So that's just something to take into consideration. Again, chew it over in your own mind, draw your own conclusions, and of course, be guided by your own personal experiences. When I was researching the goddess Danu, the possibility was raised that perhaps the Morrigan is simply a title for Danu. Morrigan is also said to be a consort of the Dagda. Sometimes Danu is put as a consort of the Dagda, being credited of being parents of perhaps the goddess Bridget, amongst others. It's one of those big questions. You got to draw your own conclusions. I haven't explored that avenue very much myself, so I'm still kind of in my preliminary thoughts on that topic. So, I don't have a firm opinion to offer you at this time. That may change in a year or two. We'll see. And then, of course, one guy that I'm absolutely convinced is one and the same as the Morgan is the character Morgan Le Fay, who is known as the Mistress of Avalon from Arthurian legend. Not everyone agrees with me in that assessment, and they have their own arguments for that. I encourage you to explore those arguments and make up your own mind. But for my part, I do feel that we are dealing with the same being there. So let's talk about what the Morgan is the goddess of. Sovereignty, first and foremost. And it's interesting because I hadn't thought about this before, and this was brought up to me. And this is one of the reasons why I'm probably going to take another look at the Morgan and maybe look for an interaction or two from her. We'll have to see what I'm up for. The trouble with the Morgan is that she touches upon a part of my soul that resonates with her very, very strongly, but it brings out aspects of myself that I don't think really need to be on the surface at this time, at this particular chapter of my life. It's not the direction I'm really wanting to go. But if so you can even when you have these up close and personal experiences with deity, it is still possible to get the wrong impression, to get the wrong end of the stick. So anyway, if I need to go into that in the future videos, I will. But the perspective that I encountered when I was doing a little bit of researching about this and thinking about it a little bit more for review is that someone brought up is that when the Morgan was taking actions in war or related to death, she was doing it in relationship to the goal of preserving the land and preserving the people. And sometimes even the warriors who, later on she foretold their deaths or, sometimes arranged for it. There have been occasions when she actively tried to warn them and tried to prevent them from going down that path. But, ultimately they didn't. And so things took place the way that, she believed that they would at the beginning or feared that they would at the beginning. So that's an interesting tidbit. I'm still chewing it over. Also, I really perceive her primarily as being a goddess of magic itself. She's a known shapeshifter, lots of different shapes, really known for, crows and blackbirds and things like that. But she's also, in relationship to her role as a sovereignty goddess of bestowing or removing kingship. One of the old customs of essentially the great marriage of the king essentially being symbolically married to the land it's an acknowledgement that his authority is deriving from, a goddess of sovereignty. And it is through his relationship with her that he will either succeed or fail, which is one of the reasons when things started going badly under certain kings, why the people, kind of gave him the axe, because it was seen, the ill fortune was seen as a manifestation of him not being in right relationship with the goddess and with the land. And so it was time for a change in leadership as a result. Moving on, certainly she's a goddess of transformation, not just of shapes, but also of energies and of life stages, strongly associated with divination and fate. Of course, the Morrigan has the title of the Queen of the Fae. And she ties into Arthurian legend through the guise of Morgan Le Fay, sometimes referred to as Morgana Le Fay. I like Morgana Le Fay. I think it just sounds prettier. And if you've been watching my channel for any length of time, if a deity or any sort of being has multiple names associated with them, I do tend to veer towards the one that I think is the prettiest. And so far, no deity has come to, wrap my knuckles with the old ruler. So, I guess I'm not doing wrong there. But the descriptor Le Fay, that in of itself denotes her links to the fairy world and is putting her kind of apart from the rest of the characters, possibly fragments of ancient gods or heroes within those in Arthurian legends. It sets her apart. And most versions of the Arthurian myth, they also tie her to the island of Avalon and the position of the Lady of the Lake. So, when it comes to Avalon, that Isle of Apples, it is associated with fertility, health, and immortality. It is perceived as a stronghold of the old religion, and many stories being ruled by priestesses. It was a gateway to the other world, the afterlife and the realm of the Fae. Again, that link with the Fae. It was hidden in the myths, and the most probable location of Avalon, or at least, its remnants or the portal to it, is Glastonbury, England, which also, coincidentally, is the current location of the Earth third eye chakra. That's another reason why I take Glastonbury's claim to be the site of Avalon a lot more seriously than other sites. And there's just something, I haven't been to Glastonbury myself, but I've watched a lot of videos from people who are in Glastonbury, who practice there, who have visited there, who have gone up on the tour, people who conduct ritual in that general area. And there's just something about the atmosphere. It's communicated even through the camera that just really leads me to believe that's the spot. That is the spot. So, some correspondences for the Morrigan. The zodiac Aries, no surprise there. Solar system, the planet Pluto. Yes, I still call it a planet. I don't care what the scientist said. It's mean. Anyway, she's associated with Pluto, which also given Pluto's mythological significance, it should not come as a surprise that Morrigan is associated with it. The moon phases, both the new moon and the waning moon, the celebration of Samhain and New Year's Day, which are both beginnings of the year, depending upon whether you're looking at the spiritual new year or the calendar new year. The colors black and red. Trees, the aspen, cherry, juniper, locust, oak, and willow. The flower honeysuckle and other plants, henbane and reed. Crystals, red agate, bloodstone, obsidian, onyx, and ruby. Metals, iron and steel. Birds, the blackbird, crane, crow, and raven. Animals, black dogs, cattle, horses, wolves. Magical beings, the fae. And her many associated powers include being able to take action, battle, courage, death, defense, favor, influence, magic, omens, power, sexuality, shamanic work, strength, witches, and witchcraft. Lots of versatility there. Now, offerings for the Morrigan that are pretty well received, and I can vouch for these, are bloodstone crystals. I gave one to her as a very big thank you, and it was accepted very, very quickly. And I know whenever the crystals are accepted because they just disappear. And it's not because some animal ran off with it. They're gone. So I know she took them. Apples, also very well received. Also, if you baked goods containing apples, that seems to go over pretty well. Add a dash of cinnamon and happy goddess. Black feathers from blackbirds, crows, ravens, collected from feathers that just naturally drop to the ground. Don't be plucking the poor birds. Red or black candles and dragon's blood incense. Sacred sites associated with her, of course, Avalon, which again I do believe is Glastonbury, but also cemeteries and rivers. If you'll remember from her mythology, the Morrigan is known to also be the washerwoman at the ford, or the washerwoman at various rivers when she would be washing the clothes of those who would be slain in battle. That's the general overview of the Morrigan, and the question I'll leave you with today is, will you seek her out? And if you do, I'd love to hear about your personal experiences with her. But that's all that I have for you. And this kind of concludes our chapter of Pagan Tales, where we are focusing upon various queens of the Fae. Next month in May, we're going to be talking about divine couples and divine marriages and what we can learn about them and how they function and their counterbalancing energies and just what that might portend for us. So I hope you come back for Pagan Tales in May. In the meantime, I'll leave your comments about all this in the comment section below, or drop me an email at brigantiablackbird@protonmail.com. That's it for now, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.